What's going on, everybody? So I wanted to do one more video on a Monday before release, so this is going to be it. We're going to do something completely new, never done before, except by every other content creator making stuff for Marvel Rivals, and that is a wish list of the characters that I would like to see in the game at a later date. I was trying to wait as long as possible because I knew we still had 5 more characters coming. So I wanted all the official announced characters to be done before I did my wish list video. So that's why it's coming out so much later than everybody else. But I figured it would be a nice little video to do as we near the release, which is just a couple of days away as of the making of this video, which is pretty insane when you think about it because it felt like the longest wait of all time. But now we're only 4 days away, which also still kind of feels like a long time with how much we're excited for this game. But here we are. It's release week, and it's time to do a wish list video. All right, so I picked out 10 characters that I would like to see in the game, but they're going to be in no particular order. The first one should come as no surprise to anybody if you've been watching my videos or if you've talked to me in the comments section at all. The number one person I want in the game is Deadpool. Deadpool has been my favorite Marvel character since I was in kindergarten. I know that sounds weird, but when I was in kindergarten, my mom got me a Deadpool figure because she thought I would think it looked cool. None of us really knew anything about the character, obviously, at the time, but I did, in fact, think he looked cool. So ever since that day, Deadpool has been my favorite Marvel character, and I have followed him for a really long time. I didn't really know too much about him, like comic book wise, at that time, because I was still really young. But as I got older, I started reading the comics, and I just absolutely fell in love with the character. Anytime he was in a video game, whether it was like Marvel vs. Capcom 3 or Ultimate Alliance or anything like that, he was always my go to character that I would play first or level up first or try to learn. So Deadpool has always kind of had a special place for me. Obviously, the sudden boom of his popularity is awesome to me. I mean, I'm not one of those people that like tried to gatekeep the character or, was like, oh, I like Deadpool before he was cool. I'm just happy that everybody's into the character now and enjoying the character because that just means I'm able to get merchandise a lot easier. He gets put into all these games and stuff. So I think he's a shoo-in. He's pretty inevitable, I think, in this game. But if I had to pick one character to be in the game right now, it would be Deadpool. So I just put him at the top of the list because it was a really obvious one for me. I think he's a really obvious one that's going to get in the game at some point because there's like that sticker of him on one of the maps and stuff like that. So it's only a matter of time. But I would love to see him in the game, obviously. The next character I would like to see in the game, it's kind of a weird one, and that is Cyclops. Not weird in the sense that like Cyclops is another pretty obvious like choice for the game. It's just that I've never really particularly liked the character. Like when we used to watch the 90s cartoon, me and my sister, I always found him kind of annoying, but I just think he would have an interesting ability set, or at least the way that like I've pictured it in my mind, would be really cool for him. And that is kind of like I don't know if he would necessarily be a strategist, but I picture him having a lot of like leadership type buffs and maybe some debuffs for the enemy team as well, but more along the lines of buffs that are like auras similar to Storm's. That's kind of how I picture it. Obviously, he'll have the laser beams from his eyes, so he'll still be a threat offensively, but I just picture him having a lot of auras and buffs for the team. And I could picture him having like an AoE, not necessarily AoE, like a team wide buff as his ultimate. That gives everybody maybe some like increased movement speed, some shields, some like regen, and maybe could like act almost like a Soraka ult if you ever played League of Legends, where she could heal anybody on any area of the map at any time with her ultimate. I think it would be something like that, where if you're on comms with somebody that's playing Cyclops, you could like call out that you're in like a 1v1 or you're being dove and you need help, and he could pop the ult and kind of just save the entire team. He's really the only one on this list that I've really thought about their abilities, except for my last person on this list. But Yeah, I don't know why. I never really cared much for the character, so it's weird that he would be the one that I put so much thought into. But yeah, Cyclops on the list. Next on my list is Captain Marvel. I've always liked Captain Marvel even before the movies. I preferred her in her Miss Marvel outfit, as you could imagine, as a young man growing up. But I just like her in general as a character, so I would like to see her in the game. It would be kind of cool if she was like a Vanguard that could still fly, not necessarily like permanent flight, but maybe more of like a hover. I always like kind of when she's depicted like kind of just like floating just a little bit off the ground. It looks a little menacing, but I think it would be cool if she could take some hits and maybe dish it back out, you know. So I would like to see Captain Marvel in the game. Next up, we have Carnage. Of the symbiote characters in the Marvel Universe, Carnage has always been my favorite. I think he looks the coolest of the bunch. I'm sure people disagree with me probably, but I always thought Carnage was really cool. And I like when he changes his hand into different weapons, like axes and stuff. I know Venom can kind of do the same thing, but I've always associated that with Carnage more than Venom. And I think his voice lines and just overall personality would be really cool to see in this game. And it would be interesting to see how he ties into the lore that we've been shown so far for the game as well. Next up, we have a popular one, I think, Nightcrawler. I think a lot of people want Nightcrawler in the game. He would just be really fun to play. I feel with the teleportation, if he's dual wielding the sabers, that'd be cool. Maybe do some things where he could use his tail, because I know in the comics and in the cartoon and stuff, they would use his tail a lot. I always thought that was kind of an interesting part of his attacks and abilities and stuff. So I think Nightcrawler would just be really fun to see in the game, and I hope they add him at some point. The next one is kind of a quick one. Gamora. Gamora is like my favorite Guardian of the Galaxy, so I would like to see Gamora in the game. They have almost every Guardian except her and Drax, at least from the movies in the game already. So it would be cool to have Gamora in the game. I just really like Gamora. I would love to have a movie inspired skin for her. It seems like they're going the route of Volume 3 for most of the MCU skins for the Guardians, but I particularly like her look in the first movie, so it would be cool. Not that there's that big of a difference between them, but it would be cool to have that movie one skin in the game at some point if they had Gamora, which I would assume they will with how many Guardians are already represented in the movie. In the game. Next up, we have Apocalypse. I mean, Apocalypse just seems like the perfect seasonal character, I guess. Like, after we're done with the Doctor Doom stuff, maybe we have like an entire season or maybe even a couple of seasons that are Apocalypse themed. So we could get 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse skins. We could get Apocalypse in the game. I always thought he was one of the coolest villains. Him and Mr. Sinister are up there as well. I actually don't have Mr. Sinister on my list, but Mr. Sinister is a good one too. But I just think Apocalypse would be a good way to go after Doom. Maybe a little obvious, but like the skin lines would be awesome for any kind of Horseman of Apocalypse characters. And maybe during that season we'd get Gambit too, hopefully. Also not on my list, but Gambit would be cool too. Next up we have Kate Bishop. Kate Bishop, very similar to Hawkeye, obviously, but I think they did a good job of differentiating them in the Marvel Avengers game. And I was a little surprised that with Hawkeye, they didn't lean as much into the trick arrows. Like, he talks about the trick arrows a lot, but like they didn't really lean into the trick arrows as much as I thought they would. So maybe they can make up for that with Kate Bishop. Maybe she could be more of like a strategist than a duelist, with some like trap arrows or debuff arrows, and then some buffs for the team, and maybe some heals as well. Next one on my list is Black Cat. No other reason than because this design team is incredible, and I would love to see what they did with the Black Cat design. That's literally the only reason she made my list, but yeah, Black Cat. And the last character on my list, probably the one I would want to see the most after Deadpool, is Spiral. Now, I know Spiral isn't like the most popular character. She did make it into one of the fighting games, but I really like this character for some reason, and I think the potential for like a moveset and kit for her would just be really interesting and fun. I mean, she's got 6 arms, which is interesting and cool to begin with, but a lot of the time they lean into her having this kind of like sorceress side to her. So she has like magic and she's like studied in the dark arts and all this other stuff. So I think there's a lot of potential for her as a character, and I think it'd be like a little out of the box and fun. A lot of her magic in the comics is based around like debuffing and stunning enemies. She was also able to like negate Magneto's powers once before, so maybe she could have some kind of like negating thing to her. But I've always liked this character. When I was writing my book series, I have a character that is heavily, heavily inspired by Spiral. So this character has always kind of like stood out to me and been like special to me. And then there was an X-Force run that had her. It was like her, Deadpool, Wolverine, Psylocke, Archangel, I believe, and Phantom X. And that run was really, really awesome. I really enjoyed that comic. I had taken a break from comics and I had returned to collecting comics, and that was one of the first series that I picked up after that all went down. So I was very excited that Spiral was in that series with Deadpool and Wolverine and Psylocke, especially. No shade to Archangel and Phantom X or anything, but those were the characters I was mostly picking up the series for. So it would be really cool to have an X-Force looking skin for Spiral. It'd be interesting because her and Psylocke have a lot of history in the comics. It would be interesting to see their interactions together as well. I just really like the character. I would love to see her in the game, and I would definitely make a ton of content for her if she gets put in the game. So if you see Deadpool get released or you ever see Spiral, expect a lot of videos of them on my channel, because those are 2 characters I really would love to see in the game. Then I just kind of want to rapid fire some honorable mentions that I came up with while I was figuring out this kind of like top 10 list, even though they're not in any specific order. But while I was figuring out what characters I would like to see in the game, I also just kind of thought up some honorable mentions that I think would also be kind of cool. And those characters are Taskmaster, Madcap. If you've never seen or heard anything about Madcap before, highly recommend looking him up. He's got some pretty wild stories. Juggernaut, Colossus, I think those are pretty. I kind of bunched those 2 together because very similar, but still would be pretty cool to have. Any version of Jean Grey, whether she's Jean Grey or Phoenix, I would love to see in the game. Me personally, I think I would rather her be Jean Grey first and then maybe do like a Phoenix season, or have her just be Jean Grey and then like she taps into the Phoenix Force for some of her abilities. But I think I would rather her just be base Jean Grey to start and then try to work in the Phoenix Force somewhere else, either in her kit or storyline wise or season wise. I think she could be really fun if she got added. X-23, Thanos, Shang-Chi, who I feel is a little less likely anytime soon just because of the last minute inclusion of Iron Fist that we didn't know about. So I did have Shang-Chi on this list, but that was before I knew Iron Fist was coming. So crazy. Wave, I think Wave has a really cool character design. I don't know a whole lot about the character. My first introduction to her was through Marvel Snap, so I don't know a whole lot, but I think the water powers and just her overall design could be really fun in the game. Miss Marvel, I feel like Miss Marvel kind of falls in line with the whole Ant-Man debate, because and Wasp, like we don't know if they're going to add Ant-Man because of the like changes in size. Like how would that work with like going through doorways or anything like that? Same with Wasp, like her going down to really, really tiny size. How would that work mechanically game wise? I'm sure they could figure something out. With Miss Marvel, it's like, okay, if her arm like stretches out and goes really big, if she's, is it gonna like clip through the wall if she's in like a tight corridor? I imagine there's a lot of technical issues with characters like that, so I don't know if we'll ever see them, but I feel like this team can make it work. I wouldn't be surprised if they were like currently working on how to make it work. You know what I mean? Rogue, I think, is inevitable in this game as well. Rogue and Gambit. I think Rogue and Gambit should get their like own season where they kind of release maybe back to back. I think something like that could be really fun and really cool for fans of those characters. Archangel, just aesthetically, like he's a shoe-in as far as I'm concerned as well. I think it's just a matter of time that we get a form of Archangel in the game. Probably closer to if they decide to ever do an Apocalypse theme season. I feel like he would come along with that. Quake, I have Quake on this list just because of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Absolutely loved Quake in there. She was my favorite character, so I would love to see her make it into the game. America Chavez, I think she would just be really fun. Angela, who is now a Marvel character, she was a Spawn character, if I remember correctly. Had a lot of figures of her growing up. Would be really cool to see her in the game because it's almost like a crossover, but not really. So I think Angela being in the game would be cool. Clea, who we're going to get in the next Doctor Strange movie at some point, thought she would be a pretty cool addition, mostly because she looks really cool in the comics, and I think the design team for this game would do a really good job with her. Domino, just because I'd be curious to see how they would do her kit, because as someone who has very bad luck in video games, I would probably be terrible at her just because of the luck factor, but I'd be curious to see how that works. Like, would attacks just sometimes miss her because of luck? Like, is there like a 0.1% chance you could dodge an ult? Like an Iron Man ult or something? I don't know. She could be fun. Mystique would be a really cool addition, I think, just because, again, character design and just overall, like, gameplay mechanics could be really interesting. It'd have kind of like a Loki ult feel to just her overall playstyle of maybe stealing other people's abilities. Or maybe they could use her to, like, have abilities of characters that didn't make the cut to make it into the game. I think that could be kind of neat. A different way to, like, add some different abilities to the game from characters that weren't, like, enough to make the cut into the game, but still give her some like unique abilities. And the last thing I just want to mention is Onslaught. I always loved the design of Onslaught. I don't know if he would just be like a Magneto skin, especially because Magneto's a little more beefy in this game than normal. I would love to see Onslaught represented in some capacity. Maybe not necessarily as his own character, but as a Magneto skin, I think would be pretty cool. And I've always just kind of liked the design of that character, so it'd be fun since he's not too far off from Magneto, looks wise. I think it would be cool to have maybe like a Onslaught themed skin for Magneto. And that's pretty much it. That's my list. I've been waiting a long time to make this video just because I wanted to wait closer to the actual release of the game. This video might be edited weird because I'm trying to edit out all the that I do, so it might be edited a bit more weird than my normal videos. I usually try to do everything in one take, but you know, it is what it is. The last thing I want to mention is now that we've got to the final week, I have one more video planned for Wednesday, but I just wanted to take time to thank everybody for liking my videos, watching my videos, subscribing, commenting. I've been really enjoying answering everybody's comments and talking to everybody. I did not expect my channel to do so well since the alpha, which was all the way back in May, but I am pleasantly surprised with the results. I've been trying to make YouTube work for about 6 years, on and off. Well, just content creation in general. I streamed for a couple of years with not a whole lot of success. I made a writing, like a fantasy short story channel called Fantasy Distractions. You could still find that on YouTube. I haven't updated it in a while. I probably will go back to it at some point, but that was my passion for a couple of years. Didn't really work out. I couldn't really get it off the ground. And then this is the first year that I've decided to fully commit to the gaming channel. At the beginning of the year, I was all about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And then I got lucky enough to get into the alpha for Marvel Rivals. And the rest, as they say, is history. I don't know if a lot of people are going to continue to watch my content after the game releases because it's free to play. There's going to be a lot bigger, better content creators probably covering the game at that point. So I'm hoping I could still kind of stay in the algorithm, but in the event I don't, I still really had a blast these last couple of months just editing a lot of gameplay for this game and pumping out a ton of content for everybody. So hopefully I can just continue to improve on what I've learned from when I did the stuff for the alpha and even the stuff I did before that with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm hoping I could just learn on that and just kind of build on it and continue to make content that I am proud of and that hopefully you guys enjoy watching. Thank you so much for all the support. I'll be pumping out a ton of videos starting Thursday night when the game goes live. But thank you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.